In bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Hi, I'm Darcie. Every year we exhibit at dozens of trade shows all across the country. The question we probably get asked the most in our booth is, how do we color our images? Today I'm going to show you my watercolor pencil technique. First of all, you have your watercolor pencils. They come in many different brands. This is a Prismacolor set. This one is a Derwent watercolor set. It has 72 colors, has 2 different trays of pencil. This one on the bottom is my favorite. It's the Faber-Castell, but you open it up and it has 100 different colors in it. Okay, this is a waxed palette pad. It's called a multi-palette, and what this is it's sheets of paper that have a wax coating on one side and they're matte on the other side. I don't know if you can see that. And what I do is I take pieces of this to use as my palette for my colored pencils. I take the colored pencils and I scribble a little bit of each color that I'm going to be using onto the palette paper. So that it looks like this. And this is reusable. And the reason I use this is because the wax coating on this side, it keeps all of the pencil up on the surface of the paper here so that you can use every last bit of the pencil. Okay, the next item we're using is the watercolor paper. I prefer this Bean Fang brand, and the main reason for that is a lot of watercolor papers have a really rough texture. This one has a finer texture, which makes it ideal for stamping. The rougher the texture, when you use the stamp on it, you get broken lines and lines that are skipping. So this has a real nice fine surface to it. The watercolor paper comes in 140 pound, which is thicker, or 90 pound, which is paperweight. I normally use the 140 pound. Okay, to stamp the images on the watercolor paper, you're going to use a permanent ink. I prefer either StazOn or VersaFine. I'm going to use VersaFine on this project. I'm going to use a set of my clear polymer stamps. The way you use those is you peel the stamps off of the backing sheet. You place them on a clear acrylic mounting block. I'm going to just stick them on there like that. Okay, you'll take the images and you'll ink them with the VersaFine ink. And you're going to just stamp them on the watercolor paper. And you'll let those dry for a few minutes before you start coloring it. Okay, you have your images stamped on watercolor paper. You have your colored pencil scribbled onto the matte side of your waxed palette pad, a piece of paper towel, and a little bit of water, and your paint brushes. Okay, you'll take your brush, you'll wet it, you're going to blot it once on each side. You're going to pick up a little bit of the colored pencil in the tip of the brush, and you're going to use the brush to apply it to the stamped image. You're going to just fill in that whole image with that gray. The reason I like the watercolor paper in this technique is that the paper is very forgiving. If you get the colored pencil into an area where you don't want it, you can just use the brush, rinse it, blot it, and just scrub it on the area to lift the colored pencil off of that area to fix it. And I'm going to speed this up so you can see what it looks like when it's done. We're going to work on the red now. Again, you'll just wet the brush, blot it, pick up a little bit of the colored pencil in the tip of the brush and fill in the image. This is where this filbert brush comes in handy because you can use the pointy end of it to get into the narrow part and then flatten it out to fill in the other areas. So basically what you're going to do is base coat everything with a coat of the colored pencil, with whichever color you've chosen. And I'll speed this up again so you can see what it looks like. Have the image all filled in. I'm going to do the shading now. I'm going to wet the brush, blot it once on each side. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the darker gray in just the very tip of the brush, and I'm going to lay the brush on its side and apply that darker gray in the areas where I want shading. Just like that, you just stroke it back and forth until it blends. Normally you want to apply shading in areas where 2 or more images overlap. If it doesn't quite blend in how you want it, doesn't quite blend in well enough, you can wet the brush, blot it, and just work over that area again to get the color to blend in. I'm going to do this around his feet on the bottom here. Okay. Shading down there, and you can blend that in a little bit better. I'm going to do this all the way around the edge of his body. And again, I'll speed it up so that you can see what he looks like when he's finished. Okay, we'll take the round brush. You'll pick up a little bit of the darker orange, and we're going to shade the feet. Just put a little bit of that along the bottom edge. And I'm going to put just a little bit of that on the outer edges of the beak. Right there. Okay, put a little bit of the green shading at the base of the holly leaves, and a little bit of red shading right at the base of the hat. Just use the brush to blend that in. Put a little bit of shading right down here. We'll put a little bit of blue shading on the furry part of the hat. If you get that too dark, just rinse the brush, blot it, and it'll blend right in. Okay, if you want to put a little bit of a blush on his tummy and give him some cheeks, you're going to wet your brush, blot it, pick up a little bit of the colored pencil, and draw just a real light circle in the middle of his tummy. Kind of blend it in, but then you'll again rinse, blot, and you'll work right around the edges of that just to get it to blend in so it fades out. You want that to be real light. Him to have some cheeks, you can do the same thing there. Just a teeny bit of color right there on his cheeks. Again, you'll rinse, blot, and work right on the edges to get it to blend in. There, that's all there is to it. You just cut him out, and you can use him on your stamped projects or your paper crafting projects.